Warning: MF Uncensored contains adult language and discussion. Listener discretion is advised. Hello,
Oh,
everyone, and welcome back to MF Uncensored. Don't forget, if you guys are listening to us on the go, you can find us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, basically anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also find more of our content on our website, themisfitfaction.com. There you find links to not only this show, but some of our other shows like Cinematic Adventures and the Multiverse Fancast. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Paul. With me via the Zoom studio, author, former pro athlete, coach, guy of jack of all trades, and probably smarter than I'll ever be, Mr. Shaun Spencer. Shaun, how are you today?
I'm great, man. How you doing today? I appreciate you.
Oh man, like just reading your media kit, I was like, damn, this guy's so cool. Like, I can't be this cool.
Well, all right. I have to say, a lot of that cool factor, or a lot of that came by accident. This was not by design. Let me just say that. We can get into it, but it was not by design.
I think that makes you cooler though. It's the people that try
Okay.
to be cool. That's that you can always
Right.
see right through them. Like,
Yeah.
my favorite is the guys that really rev their engine when they're driving, so
Oh
everyone
my
knows how fast
God.
their car is.
I live in Los Angeles. It's an everyday thing, and I'm in a neighborhood where there's families, and it just so happens the light that I live next to, the next light is exactly a quarter mile.
Oh
And
no.
they drag all day long, Ferrari, Lamborghinis, and like, people get their cars and they want to rev and hear the pop. I'm like, okay, I get it. Yes, I know.
Yes, we all know what that really means,
I
everyone.
know what that means. Okay, yes.
Well, on that note, let's get started with some
Okay.
less demeaning car drivers. Because if you have a nice car, I don't hate. I never hate on somebody with a nice car.
Oh, right. Good for
How you,
you.
it's how you drive it. If you drive it like an asshole, I'm gonna think you're an asshole. It's
Pretty much.
just science. Like, if I go to a restaurant and the cook
Mm-hmm.
can't cook, I'm gonna be like, well, they're not a good cook. They shouldn't be doing
Right.
this.
There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So, Shaun, you have quite the story, my friend. You have a lot of things, a lot of different facets on it. Why don't you start off with just a brief, like, overview of who you are, what you do now, and then we'll talk about how you got there.
Okay, sure. So I'll say I'm a military kid, grew up a military kid. Father was in the Army and in the Navy.
Hmm.
We moved more than I cared. I lived in lived in Portugal, Spain, and also, and of course, the United States. Moved a lot as a kid. Grew up in sports and technology. My father was a communication specialist for the Navy and the Army. So there was always computer books. Back in those days, floppy disks were about this big, and so I kind of learned a lot from there, and then got into sports, of course, basketball, football. Those are kind of my two things, and eventually basketball. Played high school sports. Basketball was kind of like my first love, and then I kind of got into, yeah, played semi-pro. Then I got into track and field by accident in college. Well, let's see, a lot of things happened by accident. But in college, and I got an accident. I say an accident because my first year at my college, Bowie State University, I went for the basketball teams. I was a pretty good player, but I didn't understand that universities choose their players at a different time than high school. High school tryouts are in what, November, early November. College, they choose their players in the summer.
Really?
Yeah. So a lot of the players, if they haven't already recruited you, they choose their teams at that time. I don't know what they do now, but at that time they chose that during the summer. So when November comes around, they're really only looking for one or two people. So didn't make the team, angry about it. And then a friend of mine said, hey, well, come work out with us at the track. This will get you ready for next year. I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. And I get there, and then the coach kind of takes a liking to me, asks me if I want to be a long jumper and a high jumper. And I'm like, dude, I don't know how to do all that stuff. I'm a basketball player.
Just
And he's
jump
like,
one way at
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Well, because they let me practice with the team.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had no idea who I was practicing with. I just, all right, let me just get better. So we were doing jumping drills, and he realized I could jump very
Mm.
high. So he offered me to be on the team. I'm like, okay, cool. So they're having their conversation, whatever. So then that Friday, which I love telling this story, we had a competition to lead to New York.
Mhm.
I was living in Maryland at the time. Well, I didn't show up. So on Monday, everyone's like, well, where are you? I said, look, I'm a college student. I can't afford to go to New York.
Yeah.
And the whole team laughs at me. And I'm trying to figure out, what are you laughing at? They said, well, that's paid for. I said, who paid for it? Well, come to find out, I made the Adidas national team, the professional team.
Oh, wow.
Had no clue. So everything was paid for. Like that Monday, I got all my new gear that was sponsored by Adidas. And I'm like, I'm a professional track athlete?
How did this happen?
Like, how? I was just here to work out. But then it went from there. And then, which is something I put in my book, I was failing out of college. I got kicked out twice.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, because my grades, first on my grades, they sucked. I was able to talk my way back in. And then I didn't change anything because I was spending more time chasing girls and running track. I was barely on campus. So when they kicked me out the second time, they was like, don't come back. So I'm like, there's no way I'm calling my mother until I got kicked out of school. No. I gotta talk to somebody. And then it was like, okay, so everybody has a boss. So who could I find? And then I found my way to the provost of the university. And he just kind of looked at me. Well, when he arrived, I was asleep on his door.
Oh,
I knew he got there at 6. So I was leaned against his door, knocked out. So he said, I tell you what, I shouldn't let you back, but I'm gonna give you 1 semester. But before that, I need an 8-page paper explaining why I should let you back. I'm like, I have horrible writing skills, dude.
Oh.
I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but I figured it out
with
the help of some friends. And then he let me back in and then pulled my grades back up, ended up being the assistant coach for the university, won a track and field championship. And then I returned to professional sports because I had to drop out of Adidas so I didn't get kicked out of school.
Right.
So after we won the championship, I got recruited to train for the Olympics, the 2008 Olympics, and the training camp was in North Carolina. So,
oh, that's awesome, man.
So, yeah.
What a story too. Like, that's why, like, you watch movies, especially like I'm a big movie fan, and there's nothing funnier than watching a movie about people in college. They never go to class. They never do their work. Like, look at a movie like Animal House. I don't remember them.
I love that movie.
It's one of the greatest college movies of all time. They don't go to class at all. Like, that's the whole point. And, you know, I went to college and I knew that I could not dorm at college. I didn't want to, but I also knew if I dormed at college, I wouldn't get shit done.
Dude, that's what happened to me. That's why I was failing out of things. It was everything. It was like girls, parties, frat houses, track and field.
I went to one party.
If you can remember that.
What was that?
I think the movie was up. Is it PCU?
It's really familiar. I think I saw it maybe once years ago.
Quite a few. It had like Parliament Funkadelic was playing as like in the band there, and it was about a guy. I guess the guy he had the key to everything.
Oh yeah. I went to one college party, one ever, and I was so miserable the whole time just because it was at like the school that I went to. They didn't have like real frats. They had some like housing on campus that were like actual like almost like townhouses where people would party. And I just remember being packed in there like sardines. I was just miserable. I'd rather go out and meet people that I don't go to school with. But so one party.
You're one of those smarter ones. Okay.
Oh yeah. And now 8:00 bedtime, solid. I went straight to boring. I love it. My wife makes fun of me because she has a different work schedule. We have very different work schedules. That's part of the reason I go to bed so early. It's like 9:00. She's like, "Oh my God, you're still awake, huh?" I'm like, "Shut up! I'm trying to sleep."
Right, I'm trying to work this out.
Get out of here. But so let's go back though a little bit. So you mentioned, to me in your media kit, like you had a lot of issues growing up. Like, can you talk a little bit about your past before college? Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, grew up military family, and then my parents divorced when I was 14.
That's a tough age for a divorce.
Horrible age, especially for us young men.
Yeah.
Because that's the age we get in our teens, that's when we need our fathers the most. Because that's when we really start getting into some stuff.
Yeah. And also my parents got divorced when I was very young, like about 6, I want to say at the time, 5 or 6. So my memories of my parents together are few and far between at this point. It's 30 years now. But especially like you said, in your teenage years, you're also creating a lot of identity points about yourself. and you
Exactly.
learn it from your environment, especially relationships. So
Mhm.
like I can't imagine how like shattering that is. Like you're 14, you're like, all right, I'm gonna start like dating girls and like how do I do it? And
Yeah.
that these things, and then suddenly
Yeah.
the biggest source of relationship is just
Yeah.
gone.
Dude, it's so, and yes, the relationship part is a side effect that most people don't talk about a lot.
Mhm.
Because again, I would go from people to people, whether it be my regular friends or just I was always kind of bouncing around because I couldn't hold a steady relationship. Because and one of the biggest challenges I had was I didn't understand why he left. So like on a Friday, I went camping on the weekend with friends. My father's at home. I come back on Sunday,
Gone.
no more father in the house. And he was already gone by the time I got there. So
Hmm.
it's like everyone knew but me. And I always tell the story like when I came up, say, why is everybody crying? Like, everybody cries. So I have a younger sister, younger brother, and then of course my mother. Everyone's crying. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, oh, dad left. I'm like, all right, where'd he go? Like, no, he left. I'm like, all right, well, where'd he go? Well, when's he coming back? Well, he's not coming back. What do you mean he's not coming back? He has a family, he has a house. He's in a hotel. Why is he in a hotel? He has a house. He's with some girl. Why is he with some girl? He has a, oh,
Oh,
oh, wait a minute. And then it finally kicked in. It was like, my father left? Wait a minute. And I just remember at that point, that's where a lot of my, I guess you could say, a lot of the emotional issues that I had started
hmm,
because I didn't understand.
right.
You know, a lot of us young men, we take a lot of stuff, we take things more seriously than not.
Hmm.
So I took it as he left me. I didn't even think about, oh yeah, he left the family. Yeah, of course he left the whole family. But I was like, no, wait a minute. He left. What did I do?
Hmm.
What did I do to cause him to leave?
Oh,
And
that
for
blame.
years, I was just an angry kid, getting into stuff. But I was always smart enough to, I knew where that line was,
Hmm.
but I would press that line so much.
Toe right to it.
Oh yeah, toe
Oh yeah.
right to it, throwing a foot over like
Come get me.
That's
Come get me. Can't get me. Yep.
can't give. Yeah, well, it got me one time, and I ended up in jail, which was, believe it or not, some people say, oh, okay, you know, jail can help people. It helped me to a perspective, to a certain extent,
Hmm.
but it also destroyed my mental because of what I experienced. Not even so much while I was there, the process.
Hmm.
And the thing that most people don't talk about when it comes to jail is people talked about what happened inside.
Right.
There's a process. The minute you enter those doors, they completely dehumanize you
Hmm.
and let you know you're pretty much a number and an animal. And you're thrown in a cage with other people who they've deemed as animals. And so that mental process of breaking your mind and your spirit, it's something that just you never forget. And so when I got out of that, I was happy to be home, but my mind is now warped forever.
Hmm.
And what I saw in there, the people I met, what I learned, now I'm back on the street. I wasn't even gone. I was gone for 4 days.
Oh God.
So some people are like, well, how can 4 days? I'm like, have you ever
Oh
been
yeah.
dehumanized?
Mm.
Yeah, that'll do it to you.
Yeah. There was a that psychological experiment where at a college they had like the kids as guards and prisoners,
Yeah.
and like literally they dove into those roles to the point where they had to stop the experiment because it was getting too dangerous. Like they
Yeah.
it got into their heads, you know. There's a whole conversation about, especially in America, the prison system, and like there are
Mm.
countries with way worse prison systems. Like you go
Oh
in,
yeah.
you're not coming out.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
But ours, the problem in America is ours is very, it's almost like, I hate to make this analogy, it's almost like college where it's here's the business first, and then here's the thing
Yes.
that you're actually here for. For colleges, it's
Exactly.
education. For prison,
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to be rehabilitation, but
Yeah. No,
it's dollar sign.
there's no rehabilitation. No.
I mean, look
No.
at colleges and universities during COVID. They were still trying to charge full tuition for people. Like
Business. It's a business
wild.
first.
So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you
It was
get out 4 days, like your whole mindset's changed, and
everything's changed. And
what
then
came next? Yeah.
I realized that I have to get out the streets.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I'm going to end up back in jail or I'm going to end up dead. So I work my way into college. within the next, I think it was 8 months. But as I go in, now I have all these mental issues.
Mm-hmm.
I have environment issues. I'm paranoid. Just the 4 days that I was in there, what I saw inside of there, and they call themselves making a mistake and end up putting me with murderers.
Jeez.
I was in there for literally, I had stole a $20 t-shirt, and we got in a fight with an undercover who was off duty and had no badge.
Mm-hmm.
So they tried to charge us with all of that, but ended up none of it stuck, because it's like, not only is he's off duty, he didn't have a badge, he was with his family.
Yeah.
And he jumped on us for no reason. He didn't know what we were doing. So, but now I have all these mental challenges. So when I get into college, it gets worse, because the university I went to is like 13th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in Maryland, but at the university is stuck in between DC and Baltimore. Now, during those times, DC, Baltimore had a deadly feud.
Right.
So there was consistent fights, violence, and I mean violence that you wouldn't expect on a university.
Mm-hmm.
So that was warping my mind. Every time I turn around, ready to fight, ready to protect myself, gunshots. I mean, it was insane.
And that takes a toll, being in that constant
Yeah.
state of fight or flight. That's
Yeah.
why like military, first
Mhm.
responders, law enforcement,
Yes.
EMTs who are constantly in that state
Mhm.
don't
Yeah.
know how to turn it off, and it just warps your brain.
Yeah. I mean, and even now, I'm 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 much better. I've been to therapy and things like that. But sometimes I still can't turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
I get in that mode. I have a level of PTSD that is very similar to going to war. Certain sounds, I automatically react.
Right.
And sometimes I don't even know it. And I'll look down in my hands. I have this thing where when my anxiety kicks in, my hands start doing this.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's a weird thing that I do. But so college, the relationship part, again, couldn't hold a decent relationship. Just you turn that part of your brain off.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is just, I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to figure things out. And I had so many things happening against me because I was perceived as the good guy, which I was a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept getting screwed over, which would make me angrier. And it just back, forth. Me not making the basketball team, furious. I wanted to go and find the coach and just start fighting him.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll fight the assistant. Like it was so much anger that happens. And as young men, a lot of us, we're taught how to survive. There's not a lot of us who are taught the ins and outs of life, the financial part, the emotional part, which is why I do what I do now. I focus more on helping young men with the emotional part, because that's the part we're not taught.
Right. I mean, how many men like we're taught, tough it out, bury that
Exactly.
down, rub some
Mm-hmm.
dirt in it, walk it off. Like
Yeah.
there's a terrible mindset, and it's a very old school mindset. It's finally starting to kind of be
Yes, you're
discussed
right.
at least, and it's
Yeah.
not as uncommon anymore.
Mhm.
Like I do work with kids, and a lot of these like 14-year-old boys, some of them are like, I'm feeling really anxious. I need to like not do this. I'm like, if I had said that when I
Oh
was
God.
14, oh my God.
Yes.
I'm not even saying like I get smacked or something like that, like in the
Yeah.
back of the head. Just
Yeah.
the mean that would come after it. Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? Anxious? You don't know what anxious is. Like that. Oh,
Right.
that's always my
Exactly.
favorite.
And they'll crucify you. And if you're around friends, you get clowned for that.
Oh yeah.
So immediately you don't want to do that, even though that's how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to hold it all in. That's why my book is called Chin Up, Chest Up, because it's always, all right, you know what? I got to be strong. I got to look like this, where inside you're like dying.
Yeah.
You're anxious, you're scared, you're afraid, you're nervous, you're all these different emotions, but you don't know how to put a name to them because you don't know what they are.
It's funny because we, at the time of recording, just so everybody knows, it's about Halloween time. And last night we went to a haunted house and hayride and all that stuff because I love that stuff. My wife's like cutting off circulation to my arm as we walk through it. Our friends are with us.
Right.
But behind us is a group of high school boys, which is always, I hate it. Whenever you go somewhere and there's a group of teenagers, you're always like, damn it. But So behind us, they are putting on such a front. They're
Mhm.
making jokes, they're laughing, they're singing, they're calling out like the people that are hiding to scare you. But
Yeah,
towards the end, they started getting quieter and quieter because they were actually getting afraid and they
yeah,
didn't know how to. They were so busy being so boisterous and putting on that front for their friends, especially, that suddenly towards the end, you just heard one kid say something and the other kid goes, "Shut up, Todd!" Like just
yeah.
that's. But it's the perfect example of what you're talking about, especially for teenage boys.
Yeah, and that's how it happens. We start off with no, I'm good, I'm fine, and then as the years go by, where you're not really releasing and talking about how you feel, it builds up, and then at some point, the body breaks or the
Mm,
mind breaks. Excuse me. And it was the same for me, going through so much, whether it be the violence, whether it be the friends, and the emotions, the issues with my father, not getting this job, getting screwed over here. Eventually, and I didn't have a way to let that out. And then ended up having an unfortunate situation where I lost a child.
oh, I'm so
And
sorry.
that's it was that's what broke me.
Hmm.
And when I say it broke me, it wasn't for the good. It's a part of my book. I talk about it where so basically the short version is I was dating a girl, we had a child on the way, and then one day she just decides that I don't want to have a baby. So she goes, has an abortion, doesn't tell me until after she does it.
Oh wow.
And I'm just like, but again, that whole man up, like, okay, all right, you know what? I'll be fine. I'm good. Let me take care of her, make sure she's okay. I know these things happen.
Hmm.
And then it wasn't until a few weeks later where I noticed she was distancing herself from me, even after I called her out on it. And I said, in my mind, it's like, I know what she's doing. She's
Hmm.
leaving. And then eventually I call Planned Parenthood, which is to this day is a funny story because I call them and they're like, hello, because they realize it's a guy.
Yeah, weird. Who's
Hey,
this? Yeah.
right, you're calling us? All right. Yeah, my girlfriend, I need to figure out how to help her. They're like, okay, what's your question? I said, well, she just had an abortion. I know there's these emotional things that girls go through. I think she may be depressed or something. I don't know. How can I help her? The
Hmm.
girl starts crying. I'm like, why are you crying? And then she says, she puts me on speakerphone. She's like, say it again. And I'm like, say what again? Say what you just. So I say, I'm trying to get some help for my girlfriend. She just had an abortion, and it was three other girls. They start crying. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Why is everybody crying? Help me out.
Yeah, I'm the hell. I need help. I'm the
Right.
caller.
I'm the caller. So she gets herself together and she says, I'm sorry, but men don't call. And we've never heard this before in all our years. And I was like, oh,
Damn.
okay. So, and everyone's a little bit emotional about it because they realizing that there are men who actually care. And I'm like, yeah. So she says, okay, well, she's going to go through this. She's going to go through that. You're going to need this. You're going to need this. I said, okay, cool, cool, cool. She said, oh, and lastly, write down this number. So I said, okay, I wrote down the phone number. I said, well, what's this for? She said, you're going to need that number. That's for therapy.
Mm.
And immediately I realized everything. It's like that little flashbacks from like movies that happen in like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Everything from when my father left to the relationships that I destroyed along the way, to jail, to college, to fights, to guns, to this situation hit me in that 3 seconds and I lost it.
Oh wow.
I'm at work, corporate office, lost it, bawling out on the floor. People are nervous because they don't know how to deal with me
Hmm.
because I'm always the one helping everybody. They don't know what to
Right.
do with me. And because I've realized I need help. So cried for about 6 to 8 months, thought it would never shut off. First you cry.
Hmm.
Then once you get that point through that, anger sets in. Because you're like, I'm a good dude. Why would they do this to me?
Hmm.
And then I broke again. This time was more towards anger. So now I know she's at a party. I know who's at this party. Do I just show up? I say, okay, let me stay calm. And then one of my homeboys, drunk, calls me, yo, your girl's here on top of some other dude.
Oh,
Yeah,
yep. There it is.
I'm still mad at him for that because he knew everything I was going through. I'm like, why did he even call me?
It's not, it's not like nowadays where you would physically see it like on Instagram or Snapchat.
Right.
Like, oh, it's just
Yeah,
like he's looking out for you, but at the same time, he's not really looking out for you.
exactly. But yeah, but he's drunk. He didn't understand that until later on. He was like, dude, I should have never called you
Yep.
because now I'm angry. It's midnight. I'm getting dressed. I'm looking for my gun. I'm going out the house. And then he's like, whatever you doing, stay your butt in the house. And then
Mhm.
my other homegirl calls me. I don't know what you're doing. Stay in the house. So I stayed in the house. I call her. She answers the phone. I'm like, oh, I heard blah, 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 blah. And I'm not that guy.
Right.
I'm not the guy to call and curse a girl out. I've never done that before. But when you break, these things happen.
Hmm.
And then I threatened her that I was going to be at her house when she got there. And then, but then I said to myself, I said, wait, but she had a 7-year-old son.
Hmm.
And I said, I've been that kid. I said, I'm not going to do that to that young boy.
Right.
And that's what kept me from going to her house.
That's awesome. That last pit, man. Like, because we've all been there in some capacity.
Yeah.
Again, as I mentioned, I'm a child of divorce myself, and it's funny now when I'm 36, almost 37. Like, it's perspective is very different. But when I was younger,
Right.
same thing, man. Like, I was mad. First I thought it was my fault, and there's no way, no matter how
Exactly.
much your family can tell you it is not your
Yeah.
fault. Like,
Yeah.
and then it shifts where suddenly, oh, you're the man of the house now. I'm like, I I just
Yes.
learned how to peace, by myself.
Exactly. Standing up. Yes.
Like I still can't make a meal, much less run. Like, but that's what happens, and it gets into your head. And I had a lot of relationship trouble. God bless my wife, who after many, I always said my longest relationship until my wife was 6 months. Always, it was always
Yeah.
6 months, and that
Same.
was pushing
Same.
it. And
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
my wife rolls around, and just the impact and the pushing that she's done for me. Like,
Yeah.
I love the idea of mental health. I've talked to people, I've read books. Like, she's the one
Mm-hmm.
that opened up that world and said it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was the first time anybody ever said that. Like, when I was younger, nice Italian household,
Okay.
and they always said you're too sensitive. Like, just
Yep.
that was always the thing. You're too
Yeah.
sensitive.
Yeah.
Stop
I'm
being
originally
so
from New
sensitive.
York, and I
Oh
have a lot of Italian friends,
yeah. Mhm.
Italian and Sicilian. There is a difference.
There is a difference. Oh, there is a difference. But
Yeah.
same thing. Italian. We grew up in New York. I still live in New York, and man, like the idea of trying to get help like that wasn't the thing. You
No, it
know,
wasn't. No.
after it happened, we talked to a lot of people though, because obviously custody and stuff like that. They want to get
Mhm.
who's the best fit. I remember that stuff, and I remember
Yeah.
seeing somebody when I was young because I had a lot of issues with everything. But nowadays, I love how much people talk about it now, especially for men.
Oh my gosh. I wish we had that when we were coming up. And that one piece that you touched on is something that most people don't understand when it comes to parents divorcing and it is a young boy. We instinctively attempt to take over the role of the man of the house.
Hmm.
Not that we know what we're doing. And my father always told me, if something happened to me, you're the man of the house. We take that literally.
So literally.
Yes. Well, granted, like you said, we barely know how to stand and pee. We don't know how to cook anything. We don't, but it happens.
Oh, see, I
So,
like that. And that's again, any child of divorce or any child without that, especially that male father figure, can
mhm,
understand that, especially young
absolutely.
boys. Like, it's,
Yeah,
we're the hunters, we're the men,
mhm,
there's a
yeah,
certain, and again, it's been breaking down over the years. It's a lot
yeah.
different. Like, it is so different
Very
now.
different. Oh my God. Yeah. These kids are not, I think we're the last generation that was built like that.
Yeah, I really hope there's no draft because I don't think we're gonna win. We'd lose. I hate to say it, and I'm not trying
I
to be
was
mean.
talking to my brother about that the other day because his wife is actually military as well.
Mhm.
And he's like, dude, man, I think they might bring back the draft. They're gonna do this and that. And I'm like, I said, even if they did, no one's going.
No.
He's like, what do you mean? It's a draft, you gotta go. I said, these kids aren't built like we were.
Mm-mm.
There's no sense of duty, country, anything. No, no, no. They can draft them all they want. These kids aren't going to show up on the first day. What are you going to do? Put them all in jail?
Yeah, do it.
It'll be pointless. They're not going.
It's wild. Like, and say what you I like. I've done episodes about, the difference between masculinity and toxic masculinity. They're very
Yeah,
different. I
yeah,
do
yeah.
think that our society does need a little bit more of the positive type of masculinity. Like, you know, if I go out with my wife, I want to know
Mhm.
for a fact that if somebody goes near my wife, I can punch them in the face really hard and I'm going to win that fight.
Absolutely,
Like,
100%.
and that's not about me being tougher than somebody else. It's about me protecting my
No,
wife. And
exactly. It's
that's the difference for me. But
Mhm.
let's shift gears for a little bit because you've mentioned it
Okay.
twice, and I really want to
Yeah.
hear more about it. You have a book, Chin Up, Chest Out.
Yes.
Tell
Chin
me,
up,
like,
chest up. Yeah. Yeah. It's called Chin Up, Chest Up: The Emotional Struggle of a Young Boy Becoming a Man.
mhm,
So I used my life and my stories, like some of the ones we talked about. And it's not so much me, because these stories that I'm talking about, there's young men living this every day. I'm just giving chapter and verse using myself and my situation, but they're not unique.
mhm,
So I talk about how my father left and how it changed me forever. I talk about jail, and it was written. So I'm gonna step back for a second. When you looked at my media kit and everything, it's like, oh wow, this, and this. When I say it wasn't by design, it wasn't by design because, again, I was an angry kid.
mhm.
I did things to prove a point. So if I saw something that interested me, I said, you know what? Because, oh, here's the situation. It's in the book. So right around the high school part of my book, when I first got in, when I was playing ball and I started growing. So I grew from 5 to about 5'11" in one summer.
Nice. Wow.
But in the middle of that, I was right around 5'8" playing ball. And I remember I was playing in the school, in the high school, and ball comes off the rim. I go in to catch it. I catch it and I realize I'm above the rim. So I dunk it. My first dunk ever.
Awesome.
Everybody's excited. I'm excited, blah, blah, blah. And we're getting ready to start the next game. And you know how you feel the energy of someone who's like behind you?
Yeah.
I turn around and it's the gym teacher. Never forget it, Mr. Rowland. And he's got the most disgusted look on his face. So I'm looking around like, who's he? And I realize he's looking at me. And he just looks at me and I'm like, all right. He says, you're a waste of talent. Huh? He said, you're a complete waste of talent. Get out of my face. And I stood there and I didn't understand. And he walks out the gym, never spoke to me again. And then all my teammates were like, what happened? What did he say? And I'm like, nothing. Like, all right, you ready to play? I was like, no, I don't want to play no more. And that destroyed me
Mhm.
because that's right after my father left. So now I got two men that's pretty much shut me down. So at this point, after about a month, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to prove to him that I'm not a waste of talent. I'm going to prove to my father that I was worth him staying. So I'm going to do everything.
Mhm.
So I would do things out of anger to prove that, you know what? I could do that too. Oh, you're a photographer. I can do it better than you. And I was successful because I have the will to learn and educate myself. I don't care. I'll sit here for 24 hours just to learn something,
Mhm.
just to say I can do it better than you can. That's how I was. So when I wrote this book, it was the first thing that I ever did. It was the second thing I ever did that was not out of anger.
Hmm.
So it was really big. Like, and I had a business that I did with headphone covers in the past. That I don't know if you've ever seen them. Like they're like for the Beats by Dre's, and they have like different covers on them and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. You know? Yeah. Well, I made those.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I have the patent kind of up there in the corner back there, but I have a patent for that. Yeah, but this is also in the book. That was the first thing in my entire life that I created that wasn't out of anger. Then the book followed up behind that. Now, the story of that business is also in the book because that was also a dark moment in my life because we ended up with a guy that was pretty much screwing us over. And then he threatened me and threatened to burn all of my stuff, which to me was a labor of love, the first thing I've ever done that wasn't out of anger. And literally, mind shifted, went looking for him with a gun, that type of thing.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, the book was just one of those. I think it's time to talk about those things that nobody talks about that. Men are afraid to talk about.
Right.
And I was 100% transparent, open, and the stories. It's written like a movie, I'll tell you. And make sure I get your address because I'm gonna send you a physical copy.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think you really like it. It's a beautiful story and it has a great ending. Yeah.
Oh man, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Like we love books in this house. My wife runs a book page on Instagram, so I'm sure
Awesome.
she will have a review up there at some point. Don't worry. Like
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. I got to
I'm,
follow
I'm
that one. Okay.
yeah, yeah. Don't worry. Afterwards, we'll get everything done. I
Right.
got
Well, yeah.
you. But we are nearing the end of our time, so this is my favorite part of the interview. We do a rapid fire game where I ask a
Awesome.
couple of rapid fire questions if you're interested in playing, of course.
I'm interested in playing. Let's get it.
All right, this is my favorite part because I always get some of the best answers. All right.
All right.
And I try and cater them to whoever I'm talking to. So some of them are like sports, some of them are books. Like, so we'll say, what is your favorite track event that you've ever participated in?
Long jump.
The long jump? I like it. What is one book other than yours that you'd recommend to young men?
I believe it's called Simply. Is it Simply Be?
Sounds very familiar. Yes.
Yeah. Simply Be. Is the letters is like in yellow, which is a big. It says B on the front, written by a young lady. I think it was catered around marketing and
Mhm.
business, but it's a great book to read because it takes you outside of yourself. And I throw a second one in there, which is The Magic Shop.
The Magic Shop. All right, I'm gonna write that one because I've
Yes,
never heard of that one.
please. You should read that one. Every chapter is fairly small, but you can't put it down.
Oh, see, those are my favorite kind of books.
Can't put it down, and it makes you look at yourself.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Who is a mentor or figure that has inspired you? Because we did talk about some of the poor father figures and mentors, but what are some positive ones in your life?
Mentors. Let's see. Two of my strangely enough, both of my mentors passed recently. So one of them was a church mentor that I had, Mr. Cato. He's one of the ones who took me in as far as letting me stay with him, keep me around him and his son and his wife, because I was an angry kid at church.
Mhm.
He knew that I was angry. He knew that I needed to see what a family was. I needed to see what real men do. So he kind of took me in, would teach me different things, but he would wrap it around basketball because he knew that's what I loved.
Mhm.
So he would play with us, talk with us, men's stuff. And then my Olympic coach, when I was training for the Olympics, Coach Blake, she's the one who taught me the softer side, the emotional side, because she taught me how to train women.
Mm.
She taught me how to think, outside of a man's perspective and tap into the other part of my brain, just kind of the more emotional part. And that's where the start of my emotional journey began.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, let's see. Your go-to advice for aspiring athletes.
Two things: be a student of the game, always learning. And I have a quote that I love that sticks with me to this day, which is, be willing to give up everything you are today for who you will become tomorrow.
I like that. I like that. So many people just get stuck in their ways. And
Right.
oh, and then last one, a quote or well, you just answered it. Never mind. I'll still say it. It was a quote or a mantra that you live by, but I feel like that.
Yeah, that would be it. Then maybe another thing for advice for athletes is, yeah, like I said, student of the game, and then emotional intelligence, which, strangely enough,
Yeah.
yesterday I just finished a book for athletes. It's 26 pages. It's a quick guide. It's a model that I call the sprint model.
Mhm.
And it's basically, I break down where you have your self-awareness, purpose-driven, resilient, interpersonal skills, navigating anxiety, and transformation. And I utilize that model towards athletes. So athletes and performers. So if you're a singer, you play instruments, you're an athlete, or you're an actor, this is all built around building your emotional intelligence towards your specific discipline.
That's awesome, man. Now, if anybody wanted to buy your books or learn more about you, what are the best ways that they can do that?
Just my website's probably going to be best. ShaunJSpencer.com and SHAUN, ShaunJSpencer.com. And also on Instagram is I am Shaun Spencer.
Very direct. I like it.
Yeah. I used to use My old name was Olympic trainer, which I have for so many years because when I was training for the Olympics, I was also coaching people. So someone gave me that name.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. But Shaun, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for sitting in with us. And I really hope
Absolutely.
that anybody who's listening, especially the young men out there, like it's going to be okay and everything's
It's
good.
gonna be okay.
You just
Yes.
like, don't be afraid to let it out.
Yeah.
That's where we're
Yeah.
at.
You feel so much better when you do.
Oh, it's
Trust
the
me.
best
Really
feeling.
do.
But thank you so much for being on. We'll talk to you soon.
Man, thanks for having me. I appreciate you.